Hello, welcome to our cookery session for Be Your Best. My name's Coral, so I'll be doing the cooking, showing you what we're making today. We're going to be making a very healthy vegetable chili. And also we're going to make some accompanying spiced rice today for our recipe. Now I'm going to show you the ingredients first that we have. And for our first dish, we've got here some lovely sweet potatoes, our red pepper, some lentils. These ones are green lentils. You could have red lentils as well. I have some baked beans, but you could add any type of beans, lots of fibre in beans, so very, very good for you. We've also got our chopped tomatoes, which we're going to put in, and our spices, the chili powder and the smoked paprika. So that will give our chili a nice flavour. Today I'm using shallots, small onions, give lots of flavour. And then we've got our garlic, which will give it a nice flavour. And we're going to use some stock to make it have a nice liquid within everything that we're using. Now here I've got something called a gel stock cube, and that gives us lots of flavour. This is a chicken one, but you could use vegetable, but you could also use the normal stock cube. So let's make a start, and I'm going to take the ends off my sweet potato like that. And then you can either use a peeler if you like, or I'm going to use my small knife, which I just find is easier for this shape of potato. And then I'm going to slice mine first before I chop it. So I'm chopping mine in half and then into small pieces. So just continue to do that until both of our potatoes are prepared. So now we've finished chopping all our sweet potatoes, and they're ready for when we start to fry them in the frying pan. But we are going to now chop our red pepper, just so we've prepared that. I'm going to use half of the red pepper. This is quite a large one. And I've just cut the pepper in half, and I'm just going to take the main stalk out. So we've got our red pepper. Don't worry about the little seeds, they're fine. And I'm just going to cut this first in strips like that, and then into little squares. So that's our red pepper, all cooked and all chopped and ready. And then once you've chopped all those, we're going to move on to our onions. Now I've got a little shallot here. I think they give a lovely flavour. So I'm just going to cut the ends off like that. And obviously take the skin off the shallot. So then we've got our shallot. And again, I'm going to chop that in half and just slice it. So we've got lovely our sweet potato ready, our pepper, our shallot, and now our garlic. So I've got one quite large garlic clove here. So again, I'm going to take the ends off. And then what I normally do is just place my knife on the garlic clove and press that down with my hand, and it just makes it easier to chop. So there we have our vegetables already prepared to start cooking. Okay, so now we've done that, we can move on to actually starting to fry our ingredients. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil over the base of the pan so that nothing burns or sticks to it. And I'm going to turn on the gas. Just a medium heat to start frying. And I'm going to add my garlic and my shallots. So let me put that in, and we're going to fry that off for about 5 minutes before we move on to the next step. Okay, we're going to move on to the next step now, and we're going to add in our lovely red pepper. So just put that into your frying pan with the shallots. Give them a stir. And we're going to cook them for a few minutes just to soften them before we move on to the next step. So the pepper's starting to soften a bit, so we're going to add in our spices. So here we've got our chili powder. So I'm just going to put about half a teaspoon of chili powder, and then we're going to put in some paprika. So you can add smoked paprika or normal paprika. Okay, so again, I'm going to put a little shake of paprika, and then I'm just going to cook those off, and that releases the flavour of the spices. So that's our spices added in, and so now we're going to put into the pan our sweet potato. So I'll put all that in. Okay, so just give that a mix. And the next step is that we want to add our stock. So I've got a measuring jug here, and I'm going to pour into the measuring jug some hot water to about 300 millilitres. Okay, and then dissolve the stock cube in the water. So I've put my hot water into the jug, and I'm going to give that a stir. And when that's dissolved, we can put that in with our sweet potato. So there we have our stock in with our vegetables in the frying pan. And we're going to leave that to bubble away for 5 minutes before we carry on with the next step of the dish. So the next thing, after a few minutes of bubbling the sweet potato in the stock, I'm going to add in a little splash of Worcester sauce. And then I'm going to add our chopped tomatoes and my lentils. So I'm just going to give that a stir. And then I'm going to add my beans. And then we're going to leave that for about 15 minutes, because what we're looking for, it will thicken up in the sauce, and also when you put a little knife into the sweet potato, that will be soft. So let's leave that now for about 10-15 minutes and see how soft the sweet potato is. Okay, so we're going to start cooking our spiced rice. So that's an accompaniment we can use for our vegetable chili. So I'm just going to go through the ingredients with you. Now here I've got some whole grain basmati rice, and I've just measured the amount out, and I've just put it through a sieve to wash it. So then we're going to use some cumin to give it a nice flavour, and also some turmeric. Now I've got a stock cube, and a shallot, give it a nice flavour, and a carrot, something a bit unusual, and just a tiny amount of butter just to fry the rice in. And in my jug here, I've got some hot water ready for our water to cook our rice in. Okay, so to start with, we need a saucepan. So I'm going to use a small saucepan, something like this, and I'm going to put in my tiny amount of butter, okay, into the saucepan. And then I'm going to put that on the heat to melt before we add our onion. So I'm going to chop out, I've got a shallot again, I'm going to chop that ready. So that's the first step. So we're going to turn our pan on, ready to put our onion in. So we've got our pan on the heat, and the first step is to put in our onion. And we're just going to give that a quick stir, just to coat it with a little bit of the oil. And we're just going to cook that for about a minute before we move on to the next step. So our onions have started softening, so I'm going to add half a teaspoon of turmeric to our pan and half a teaspoon of cumin. And then we're going to cook that for about a minute on a nice low heat. And whilst that is cooking, we're going to peel our carrot, and then I'm going to grate my carrot. There's our grated carrot. So I'm going to put in, this is the next step now with our rice, we've got our onion and spices, and I'm going to pop my grated carrot into the saucepan and give it a nice stir. And then our next step is we're going to put into the saucepan our rice. So that's our brown basmati rice. And again, give that a stir. Now I have here my stock, my water, which I'm going to add my stock cube to, just like we did in the vegetable chilli. So I'm going to pop that into my hot water and give that a stir, just to dissolve the stock cube. And then we're going to pop that in with our rice and carrots. So I'm going to pour that now into my saucepan, and I'm stirring through the stock in with the ingredients. Now this is a brown basmati rice, so we have to cook this a little bit longer. So I'm going to put my timer on for 20 minutes and then have a little check to see if my rice is soft and that the liquid has been absorbed. So we're going to leave that for 20 minutes and then have a look at it. And always remember to put the lid on your saucepan, like that. So let's go back to our vegetable chilli, and this is coming along really nicely now. The sauce is thickening up. And you can see by the sides of the saucepan that the sauce is reducing. So I'm just going to get my little knife and check the sweet potato. So just put your knife in gently and just see if it's soft. So it's nearly there. I think we probably need another 5 minutes and then we'll give it another check. So as you can see, our vegetable chilli has been bubbling away, and I've just put a little knife into my sweet potato and it's lovely and soft. So I'm just going to put that in my bowl now so you can see it plated up. So here we have our vegetable chilli, lovely and colourful, looks lovely and really nice as well. You can keep this in the fridge if you want to eat some of it. You can have some the next day. Quite nice with a jacket potato or rice or even wrap, something like that. Wrap it in a wrap. But that's your vegetable chilli. Thank you for watching the video of how we cook this vegetable chilli, and hopefully we'll see you on another recipe.